All for?
Aye.
All right. It's $300 to the lady in the corner and you're all set.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you. Drum roll, please. Blackhead Mountain. So for everybody's clarification, they're going to do their presentation towards everybody as everybody else has and the board, and then the board is going to ask their questions of the applicant, and then we are going to take any new public comment.
Can everyone see the screen where it's located? Okay.
Behind the column.
Okay, is that better?
Yeah, should we hit the light?
Yeah, sure.
Joseph, where are the lights?
I don't know. I have a feeling it's one switch though, knowing it's cool.
Oh, no. Sorry, just trying to get in focus
Okay. Everyone see? Unfortunately, I have to stand here, so I might be in the way of some people. Sorry. I am, Mr. Chairman, is it okay to start? Okay. I'm Kelly.
If you hold the microphone like a hot dog instead of like a candle, we'll hear you better.
Can you make the image bigger?
Here, this one's louder.
All right, can you hear me?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay. I'm Kelly Leibold. I'm with KARC Planning Consultants, and I'm just going to do a brief presentation of the project. Some of the information is repetitive, but this is a public hearing, and there may be some new people here who weren't at prior meetings, so please be patient with me. The focus of this presentation is to provide you with an update of what's changed since the last meeting and since the last time that you saw this project. Okay. I'm multitasking, so please be patient with me. Just as a reminder, I think everyone knows what this is, but this project consists of 3 parcels. The addresses and the tax ID numbers are on this drawing, and it's, by the way, all of the information that is in this presentation is existing information that we've provided either in prior submissions or the current submissions. So there's nothing new that's being presented here tonight. So again, there's 3 parcels. All of the parcels are in the Mountaintop zoning district, and the total holdings of the land is approximately 102 acres. The Blackhead Lodge, as most of you know, is a 22 hotel key facility. Obviously, everyone's aware there's an 18-hole golf course, a clubhouse, a restaurant and bar, and fitness center, and a pool. Overall, the proposed project includes 127 hotel keys or units that we also refer to. The main lodge, tennis courts, pools, spa, 2 restaurants, and a bar. We have provided several submissions to the town of Cairo and for the public's review. The largest submission started on December 21st in 2023. That submission included a full Part 1 EAF, all of the associated appendices, and the site plan drawings. In February, 16th of 2024, we provided some additional appendices. Those are just essentially technical reports. And this particular submission, which was delivered and is dated April 22nd, and it looks like this, it's a comb-bound document if you've looked at it at the town. That contains a cover letter which explains the changes that have been made to the project and to the overall plan since the last time you saw the project. There are responses to the consultant comments. So we received comment letters from Greene County Planning, from New York State DEC, and from Lamont Engineering, which is the engineering firm that the town is retained to review the project. And so we provided responses to each of those comments. They're itemized by letter. We also provided responses to the public comments, to your comments. And the public comments that we received were on March 7th at the public hearing, on April 4th at the public hearing, and then there were written comments that were received. Overall, there were a total of 30 commenters, and if you reviewed the document that we had provided to the town, we provided a table with a list of everyone's name, the topic that you had addressed, and then each of those topics were addressed by category. Also in the document is a summary of everyone's comment. So we took the public hearing, we recorded it, we narrated it, and in the document that was submitted to the town, there was a summary of everyone's comments. So you can find those responses. In addition, we provided a response letter from our attorney, which is Catania Mahone and Ryder, and that response was in response to a letter that we had received from Rupp and Feltzgraf. So that is contained in this document. We also provided an amendment to the Part 1 EAF, and some of you are more savvy with environmental laws than others, but an EAF is the environmental assessment form. So we amended the environmental assessment form to reflect some of the changes to the project. In that full EAF, which again is in this bound document, is the town's ZEO decision letter. So we have that handy for everyone. An amended water and wastewater report, an amended traffic study, so a traffic impact study, an updated soils map, a letter from Ecological Solutions, which is a consultant that we have retained to look at the habitat and the habitat assessment, a preliminary drainage plan, which is the precursor to a SWIP, a stormwater report, and a fiscal impact analysis. So all of those are in this document. I'm just going to very briefly go through those. By the way, when the lights do come on, I did provide some maps on boards for the public, just so that you had an ease of viewing. So they're on the table over in the back or on the side. There's a number of different drawings there, some of which are in this presentation. We also provided a complete amended site plan. And so this is kind of a compilation of everything that we've submitted. In our EAF, because there's been so many reports that have been submitted and amended, we just provided a very detailed table of contents so it's easy to see which is the most updated technical report. But this is a compilation of all of the documents that we've submitted to date. Sorry, Ken. So this is a copy of the overall site plan, and we have this drawing enlarged in the front to the left of the board, so you could look at this. And what this drawing shows is the changes that we made in the locations of buildings and roads and so forth since the last time that you saw the plan. The reason that we did that is we heard you, and we heard the comments from the public, and we have reoriented and relocated and shifted buildings to minimize tree clearing and just to minimize overall disturbance to the site. So one of the things that happened between the last presentation and this presentation is that amendment. Predominantly all of the Series 15 buildings, which are the ones on the lower part of the site, were shifted. Roads were relocated, again, to minimize tree disturbance and also to minimize and reduce stream crossings. Several units on the upper portion of the site were also relocated or rotated. The details of each of the individual buildings that moved is listed in the document that we have. We've relocated the wastewater treatment plant, which is again that centralized treatment system. We eliminated some expansions and modifications to the ponds. So on the upper portion of the site, there was some enhancements and some modifications. Those have been eliminated. We eliminated wooden walkway features. So there was some elevated wooden bridges over the features, and so we've eliminated those again to minimize any impact to water features. All of the utilities, so water, sewer, storm, were designed so that it minimized pipe, so linear feet of pipe. But what we did is, when you do that, you actually have utilities that are going through green areas and areas that may not have been disturbed. So we redesigned the water, sanitary, and storm system so that those pipes follow the roadway system, and so they're in a previously disturbed area for the road. We also eliminated the helipad, so that's been removed from the project. And we provided very detailed existing and proposed landscaping plans, some of which I will speak of and some of which the landscape architect will go through. So in the package, we provided rendered landscaping plans, and that's just a fancy name for coloring the plans. It's easier to see, it gives you depth and so forth. This is the existing site, and so this is predominantly, as everyone knows, is a golf course, so manicured lands. To the left of this drawing is the upper portion where you have that extensive forested area. But this is just the existing conditions, but it's rendered, it's colored. That plan is in the back, over on the side. I keep saying it's the back, but it's over on the side. If you want to look at this larger, we'll leave that here for a little while when everyone's finished and you can review it. This is just a blow up of that, just to kind of give you a perspective of what's over there in the back, if you'd like to look at that. This is the proposed plan, and we've continuously talked about rewilding. Our landscape architect is here, and so he's going to speak to the board about this, but I just want to go over kind of a big picture in the trees, no pun intended, kind of summary. With all of the modifications that we made, shifting buildings and shifting roads, it was a significant impact to protection of the forested areas. So the existing forested areas, and when I talk about forested areas, I'm talking about a dense forest with limited understory, like a true forest that we think of when we talk about a forest. On prior applications, we had included that definition in some of the scattered forest areas. So for those of you who have golfed on this site, you know that in between some of the holes, there's trees. And they really aren't a true forest because they don't have that understory habitat. So we created a separate line on the EAF, on the environmental assessment form, and we categorized those trees as individual trees, you know, that don't have that true understory. So on this site, the true forested areas is 32.15 acres. And when we're done, we're going to add forested areas. So we're going to add a total of 16 acres of forested areas. You probably wonder, how are we doing that? So we'll go through that, but I'm just going to kind of give you a snippet. We want to take this golf course and convert it to habitat. You know, we keep saying that over and over again. We want to create ecosystem. So when you think about an ecosystem, it's enough land so species can travel across the property. Different types of land or habitats are connected. Right now, this is like a freeway, and so animals crossing from one clump of trees to another is crossing a manicured lawn and a golf course. And so we want to reintroduce travel lanes and paths and corridors for species through this rewilding exercise. So we're adding 16.32 acres of forest. Lawn and golf, right now there's 52.83 acres of lawn and golf course, kind of the same thing, right? The manicured. When we're done, we're going to eliminate 42 acres of lawn. So that's going to get converted, obviously. When we think of individual trees, and again, I'm talking about those little trees when you're on a hole and there's some scattered trees. Right now, there's 2.7 acres. And when we're done, we're going to eliminate those. So there's going to be less than scattered trees. We're going to have under 1.86. But those scattered trees are going to be replaced with forest. Again, trying to create that habitat where animals, you know, you think of a deer or something that can travel through the site. So right now they're crossing golf course, and what we want to do is create a protected habitat so that they can meander this entire site and be connected to some of these heavily forested portions that are up to the top and on the side. Okay, sorry. And this is just, again, a blow up of that rendered plan in the back, if you want to look at it when we're done, so it's in the back. This screen just shows a summary of what I just talked about. So this is the page from the environmental assessment form where we categorize all of the different uses on the property. And so to the left is what's there now. The middle is what's going to be changed. And then to the right, I know it's a little bit hard to see, is in the end what you would have. And so that's in the document that we provided to the town. We have provided a drainage plan, stormwater plan, people refer to it as a stormwater plan. There's a design in there that's also reflected on the drawings. The stormwater is going to be just a series of conveyance piping in some areas, grass swales, trying to reutilize the habitat, bioretention, and infiltration basins. So really trying to do green practices on the site with a goal of always, as required by DEC, your pre-development runoff cannot be any greater, or your pre-development has to be equal to or less than your post-development. So once we develop the site, we can't create any additional stormwater runoff. So that's done using hydropad and so forth, and that report will be reviewed by the town engineer that you retained. Okay, water and wastewater. So again, there is a very detailed water and wastewater report. There's lots of information in there. As many of you know, we've been doing some testing on the existing wells, installed a new well that was tested. The existing site, just kind of broadly, there's a lot of detail in that technical report, and I'm not going to go through that tonight, but it is available for the public's review. The existing site uses about 14,000 gallons per day of water, and of course discharge is wastewater. Proposed is 46,000 gallons. That number changed since the last time that you saw it, because we realized that there were 6 bedrooms in the existing buildings that are going to be retained for some temporary staff housing that wasn't included. So you'll see that that number changed minorly from the last submission to this submission. Wastewater, so as I indicated, the wastewater treatment plant has been proposed in a new location. It hasn't deviated significantly than where it was before. The water and the wastewater will be reviewed in addition to the town engineer. The water and wastewater will be reviewed by New York State DEC and Greene County Department of Health. So there's 3 levels of review. So that review will continue. All of these documents that we gave to the town have gone to those agencies. So they'll continue a linear review of those projects, of those reports, while the planning board is reviewing them. Once this site is operational, there is very rigid mandatory oversight, testing, and daily monitoring that's required by these systems. Those testing and monitoring have to be completed by a licensed operator. That licensed operator is under the auspices and oversight of the Department of Health and DEC. So once this project advances, there is a significant amount of oversight. Okay. We have done some trip analysis and analysis of existing vehicle trips out of the site. Maybe some of you saw the equipment that we had put on the road to do some counts. Our traffic engineer is here. He's going to speak to the board about some of these items. There were what we call automatic traffic recorders placed on Blackhead, on Crow's Nest, and Bald Hills North on Friday, April 5th through Wednesday, April 10th. So you may have seen those as you were driving over. It's just they're counting the volume of cars and the speed. All of that is summarized in these technical reports. And the information is on the bottom. We can certainly go over this with the board if they want us to. Based on that information, so that existing information is utilized to project what the proposed traffic would be on the existing roadway system. All of these estimates were utilized using the Institute of Traffic Engineers, so it's an ITE manual. It's a standard manual that is used throughout the nation. So this is a very consistent type of methodology that's used here, that's been used in other municipalities. We also looked at crash data from New York State DOT, just to quantify. It's an important component of a traffic study, just to understand what is going on in the surrounding area. And that all of that data is consolidated in the report. There is no significant crash patterns that are identified other than collisions with animals, which I'm sure you're not going to find shocking. And so on average, we just did an average here is Blackhead Mountain Road and Bald Hill Road North each experience about one crash per 1.6 to 2.5 years. This is the existing data. Some accidents may occur that aren't reported, so this is just based on reported data. We also looked at level of service of intersections, and this is something that the traffic engineers spend a lot of time
Could you
on.
repeat that? Sorry. Could
What?
you just repeat that, what you just said?
That we looked at intersections.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we looked at intersection analysis, that's in the report. What that means is the engineers look at the delay that it takes for someone to make a turning movement. Traffic engineers use labeling that starts with A and extends down to F. A being the best intersection and F being the worst intersection, meaning there's significant delays for someone to make a left, a right, or to go through an intersection. And so they looked at the existing intersections, completed an analysis of the existing conditions, added the proposed traffic, and they calculate, again, a post-development level of service, LOS. On the post-development level of service, all of the intersections continue to operate at an A level of service. So that information, again, is totaled and provided in these technical reports. Okay, lastly, we did an analysis of the existing roadway system. I kind of call this a constraints map, to look at areas where there's poor road conditions, there is limited sight distance, there is curves or horizontal and vertical curves. And so the traffic engineers did an analysis of the existing road system. These are just kind of quantified on this drawing for you. Again, in the traffic report, they identified areas where they think the roadway system needs improvement, either signage or some construction improvements. There was one culvert that needed to be analyzed just to determine that if it was suitable for the existing and the proposed traffic. Again, so that's in the technical report. We provided a projection of what we think the construction traffic may look like. And so just based on the schedule for the project and the various trades that are coming into the site, we provided a calculation, and these tend to look like S-curves. So you have some existing traffic, ramps up depending upon the trades. And again, this is based on our projected schedule of a 2-year build-out plan. That construction schedule is largely based on this construction phasing plan. So we are proposing that this project is built as one phase as far as the planning board is concerned. It's a single phase construction for purposes of seeker review. When we talk about construction, we tend to break it down into different phases based on logistics and laydown areas and development. This is a preliminary plan. The first thing that we want to start with is, it's hard to see on this, and this plan may be in the back, is phase 1, which is in this particular area. This is the border where you have the predominant residential properties. That's a heavily installed landscaping plan and a buffer, so it's intended. So it's proposed that this would be a heavily landscaped buffer, and that would be installed initially to try to offset some of the construction activity that's going on in the site. The next, it's gonna keep going on. We have we need a little battery check. All right, I'm gonna try to yell, so hopefully everyone can hear me. The next part of the phasing would be the red area, and that's the predominant main road or main spine into the project. And from there would be sub-phases for each of the different parts of the project. We also completed a fiscal impact analysis. I want to just caution that we prepared this fiscal impact analysis without having the opportunity to sit with the police chief, to sit with the fire chief, and to speak to the town supervisor. So this is based on existing data and projections of the market value of the project. So can everyone hear me?
No.
No.
All right, we'll wait 1 minute.
While we work through technical difficulties, if somebody can flick the lights on, if anybody wants to look at the maps on the side. You have a minute or two while that gets.
I think we're ready to get started again.
Alright, everybody please quiet down so we can continue. Sorry for the delay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay, I'm gonna do the best that I can. Can everyone hear? Yeah. Okay. Where we left off was we were talking about the fiscal impact analysis that we had prepared. And so I'm just gonna summarize again the fiscal impact analysis. So what is a fiscal impact analysis? We look at the existing site, the existing assessed value, the existing market rate value, and we look at the existing taxes and then the proposed taxes that would be generated as a result of this project. So the fiscal impact analysis looked at the existing site. The existing assessed value for these 3 properties is approximately $1.3 million. The existing market rate value, again, you do not, obviously you know this, you don't have 100% assessment in your community, so the market rate is $3.2 million. We use that market rate number to determine what the taxes are. So today, 2024, the taxes that are paid for this property, county is $8,698. The town is $11,983. The school is $31,027, and Round Top Fire is $1,687. And so we do an analysis of this site based on full build out. So if this project were fully built, the assessed value is $134 million. The market value, again, applying your equalization rate, is $330 million. And so we use that number to determine the projected taxes that would be received by the different taxing entities. So the county would project to receive $895,000. The town.
A year?
Annually, yes, these are annual numbers. Yep, sorry, thank you for clarifying that. These are annual numbers, in case anyone didn't hear that question. The town would be projected to receive $1.2 million. The school would be projected to receive $3.1 million. And Round Top Fire would be projected to receive $173,000. So those are annual numbers based on full build out. We do an analysis to look at the expenses as a result of the project, and overall annually the net gain to the community, the net gain to county, town, school, and fire is $4.3 million. Again, we are planning on sitting with the police department, with the fire department, and we'll review this with the town supervisor. So that is a summary of the reports that are in this document. Oops, sorry. The modifications to the site plan, and some of the additional information that I was able to summarize from the technical reports. So, Mr. Chairman, if you'd like, all of the consultants and heads of the companies are here to answer questions that you may have as far as the different technical components.
All right. Alan, any questions?
Yeah, same, I just have to review all the,
You got the guy with the sewage treatment plant?
Yeah. So why don't we just, we'll have everyone come up just in case. I'll just introduce everyone quickly so you know what it is. Andy Alvin is with Crawford Associates, and he is water and wastewater. Jonathan Deloy is our attorney with Titania Mahone and Ryder. Ken Worsted is with Creighton Manning, and he's our traffic consultant. Rodney Morrison is with the LRC Group, and he is our civil engineer. And Henry Thomas is with the LRC Group, and he is our licensed landscape architect. So we are here tonight to answer any questions that you have. If you want any additional information, they're prepared to just give you a kind of a snippet of each one of their reports. If you'd like that, we can just go through it briefly, and we'll take it.
All right, thank you all for coming tonight. First, I'm going to start with the sewage treatment plant. If you could just give a high level as to where it was and where it had moved to, and the reasoning for the move, and then you, I'm assuming, advantages of that.
Andrew Alvin, Crawford Associates. So to address your specific item, the wastewater treatment plant was shifted, shifted only about, let me say, maybe about 500 feet from its original location. Originally it was here. We moved it closer to the parking area, and essentially just trying to get it, as far away from, what the public would be, as the occupants, what they would be exposed to as far as the proximity of the plant to the traveled ways, houses, parking areas, and that kind of thing. We're just trying to, conceal it, or otherwise, stash it away so it's far, as far away from the parking area as possible and the traveled ways. And there was a reconfiguration of those roadways, as Kelly had mentioned before, to try to minimize crossings of streams, as well as any changes in the landscape as far as trees. And so with that reorganization of some of the roadways came the relocation of the wastewater treatment plant. So
To where?
We're going to take public comment after the board's done asking their questions.
So from just a high level design of the wastewater treatment system for this project, each of the buildings would be served by a holding tank similar to your septic tank at most people's homes in a residential or rural residential area. Each tank would be sized for each building and the uses that were projected for them. And then the effluent from that would be then transported via pipes, via gravity, and some pump stations to that central wastewater treatment plant, where it would be treated through multiple processes that are permitted through the DEC, and then the final treated water would be then discharged to one of the waterways on the property.
And the treated, if you could just point on the map where the treated water would flow, because I don't see a stream or something there to this.
So right now we have documentation and correspondence with the DEC saying that we can discharge the wastewater to a location over here.
You standing in the way.
And if we're also in communication with the DEC about an alternative location that's higher up on the site, up here where this where this water body is, which then leads down through the site and also exits through the same location, just deeper into the site. And, you know, from a project standpoint, it has some advantages as far as, recharge and keeping the flows for the stream channel that exists there now. But we don't have a full report back from the DEC as to whether they accept that location and or what the effluent limits would need to be to discharge to that. So design of the plant is contingent on those parameters of what can we discharge to the environment.
So if I'm understanding correctly, the preference is to discharge essentially in the middle of the site and have the water run through.
Correct.
Okay, so I'm dumb, I'm sorry. This is going into a holding tank, similar to septic tanks.
Immediately after the building, correct.
And then it's going to be sent to a treatment plant?
Correct. The solids will be removed in that tank and only, well, from the wastewater world would be called clear liquid effluent, would then go to the treatment.
Okay, which is treated by what?
It's treated by a biological, process where, yes, bugs,
Those guys?
yep,
Okay.
bugs living on, what, a fixed film, which is pieces of plastic floating around in water. The bugs live on that plastic and they treat the water. And there's multiple processes where there's this floating, plastic inside the tank that is aerated. All that biological process is happening in that. Then there's a trickling filter that passes, that does the polishing on that. And then it gets clarified where any solids, like after the bugs get done with it, there's inorganic material that, you know, becomes sludge. That gets pumped into a holding tank, which will be eventually hauled off as solids. And then that clear liquid that is then treated, gets clarified, passed through a sand filter, and then discharged, as after a UV filter is disinfected.
And when does it become drinkable?
After the
Step
UV,
in, yes.
correct, after the UV filter.
What?
After the UV filter prior to discharge.
Okay. Thank you.
The sand filter would be similar to like the sand filter that people would have on a pool, where it's, you know, very fine sand, the water's passed through that, so any solids whatsoever are completely removed, and then it goes through the UV filter, so any organisms left in that would be killed.
I'm not understanding the plastic part of what you're talking about.
Yeah, that's a complex biological process where, you know, these microbes, bacteria, live on the plastic itself, and it's floating around in the water, in the wastewater, aerated.
This is
It's a
not,
process.
this isn't a unique system, so
Not at all.
this is how, standard wastewater treatment plants are designed.
But in this size, you know, you get into the large municipal plants, and it becomes a different process. And so you have tanks that hold what they call mixed liquor, and that's a very concentrated, very high potent, mixture, that's the thing that usually has problems with smells. So when you're driving down the highway and you're like, "Ooh, what's that?" Oh, it's the wastewater treatment plant. Those are the types of processes that those cause a lot of odor. This process is a lot different. Everything is contained inside vessels, and there's not the concentrated mixed liquor that is involved in those larger municipal plants that do have odor problems. This process has virtually zero odor, and, you know, most of the venting that'll be happening will have carbon filters that will take whatever the final odors that might come off of the process, be filtered through those carbon filters prior to being released to the air.
Yeah, I got a question. Of all the letters I got from the public, probably the most one in every letter was discharge of the solid waste. And they said that's a tributary of the Shankill Creek. That's where you're discharging?
So, not the solid waste.
I know it's not solid, but we have, in our zoning law, we have special Shankill Creek protection regulations. And then I assume they apply to the tributaries. Because I went to Green County Soil and Water, he said all the tributaries, Green County Soil and Water said all the tributaries from Blackhead are part of the Chimney Creek. And our stricter regulations, I don't know if you guys read them, but it's above the Class C regulations for a town street. And one of them says, I don't know if that means, it says process waste. Now, does that include your discharge?
I don't know that, I'd have to see the definition of what you call process
I don't know
waste.
what it is, either. It's just written in here, that's what I know.
Well, in the lack of a definition, I don't know that, yeah, we would have to address that, because,
So it's the same system that we have in the town for our sewage collection.
right,
We just charge it to the, that's what.
right. Sure, yeah, I mean, the DEC is gonna be reviewing all of this, and they issue the permit and the effluent limits that will be required, the project will be required to maintain.
Requires everything for Class C, but this one, Shingle Code regulation, because of the water source, is above the Class C, like
They take that, they take that into, they take that into consideration.
Instead of being 50 feet construction, so the mean high water level is 100 feet.
Right, that's, yeah, that's a zoning requirement, correct.
The other thing I was gonna ask you, the water usage. Now, you said you had to drill a well. Are you pre-drilling a well to see if you can have enough water supply prior to?
We've currently drilled an exploratory version of a potable well to, you know, ascertain how much water we can get on this site. Currently, we didn't have it in time for this submission to discuss, but currently the well that was just recently drilled is 7.5 gallon a minute stabilized discharge. And given the existing wells that are on the site, I also include a couple of wells that are at 7 gallons a minute. We, you know, we project that within a couple additional wells will handle the entire site without any issues. And we've also been monitoring the impact of using those wells on other wells. So if you draw water out of one well, does it affect the well that's neighboring it? How are they interconnected? And so far we found that none of the wells on site really have much influence on each other, nor the neighbors. But we have more data coming in as we complete more well drilling, more testing, more flow of the wells to determine exactly if there is any interconnection. But so far, the preliminary information is that there's not a lot of influence between wells, and there is production enough to cover your projected flows.
How deep is the well that you're exploratory?
No. It's roughly about, it's just about 500. I think we've stopped at 500. Yes. Yeah. That may sound a lot, but a lot of the wells, and you can see in the report, a lot of the wells in the neighborhood are 2, 3, 4, 500 foot wells. And that's kind of, and the reason we went to that was to try to provide also quite a bit of volume within the well itself. That way, when you have a high demand, that it's not just a small volume that you're pulling from. It acts as a reservoir of its own. I give you just a quick synopsis on the water system itself. Our basis of the water system is we're gonna have 4 or 5 wells that are gonna be serving the project, and they will be pumped to a centralized location with treatment, filtration, and disinfection, holding tank, all sized per DOH standards, and then distributed out throughout the project using a pump station.
One other question that I had, I said, will you have a full-time plant operator, and will he be on site, or are you gonna contract that out to a company?
That hasn't been fully determined. There will be an operator, just the structure of whether or not it's a full-time employee or a contractor, that's not determined.
So the New York State DEC, or Department of Health itself will tell us what the classification of that operator is, and so we have to adhere to those requirements.
And just, how often do they have to report to have the public water supply permit? How long? How often do they have to report?
Yeah, typically there's, either daily or weekly testing. As chlorine residuals are usually tested on a daily basis to maintain that there is enough chlorine in the system for disinfection. That doesn't necessarily, you know, there's dailies and there's, it depends on the system and the DOH's review. Similar to the wastewater treatment plant, the DEC will establish what those periods of monitoring will be. But it's based on a public water supply, so it's a pretty stringent monitoring program. In addition to, because this is a new one, it'll be subject to all the new regulations as far as emergent contaminants and disinfection by product and everything else that older plants are being phased into. This plant will start day one with all of those requirements.
How have you studied how these wells will affect your neighbors? I
So
mean,
we've-
that's a big concern.
Correct. So we have done well testing where we have run wells for multiple days, full flow out of the well.
What
with
wells?
Wells on site.
Wells on site.
Right, current existing wells as well as this well 2, which is the newest well that we just drilled. And then while we were doing that, we monitored wells that are on the neighbor's property. There was a group of neighbors that agreed to let us, probe their wells while this testing was happening and watch the water levels in their wells while it was happening to see if it affected, the static level, where the water would normally be in your well, and to watch whether or not it fluctuated while these tests.
Those neighbors,
Correct, yeah, we reached out to all the neighboring,
not the one that's in the county or.
then there is a map.
They didn't reach out to my property.
There's a map of those monitoring.
You're lying.
Yeah, that's, no,
Where the
no.
reports, where the reports.
Why don't you check them in the summer?
When it's,
Yeah.
when the stream's dry.
I get it.
You're lying.
It's a lie.
For a change.
Why don't you get a list of the names of the people they contacted?
We have it. It's here. We already know.
Oh.
Would you like us to text
I
you
don't
over
know.
the
I haven't got an answer.
No?
I was interested in the intersection report.
Ken? I think you're up.
I'll try and project, because I like to talk with my hands. Did you have a specific question, or you want me to give just an overview?
My specific question is the intersection that goes from Blackhead Mountain Road into Heart's Content Road.
Yep.
The visibility is horrendous.
Yeah, the challenge there is as you're pulling out of Blackhead Mountain Road, looking to the left, out to kind of the north-west
I
direction.
don't really know if that's your job. I mean, that's the way it is right now, but it's gonna be effective.
Yeah, certainly. Her question is about the intersection site distance at Blackhead Mountain Road and the intersection of Heart's Content Road. And that kind of falls
331.
into the jurisdiction of the county because Heart's Content is a county road, and then Blackhead Mountain is a town road. So it's an interaction, between those two. A lot of times, those issues are a result of vegetation that kind of creeps and creeps over the years. It gets closer and closer to the road and then starts to affect that site distance. So I think that goes to your specific question of the issue there.
The town problem.
I think it's an interaction because technically the area that is hindered there is on the county road side of it. It's not necessarily when you're sitting at that intersection at the stop sign, the direction that you're looking down is on the county road side. If it was the reverse, then it would be more of the town road side. Alan, anything on traffic? Ed?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, Rodney is
is civil engineering, so stormwater and drainage. If anyone has any questions on the stormwater and the drainage, which is SWIP. And then Henry Thomas is our landscape architect, and so he will talk about the rewilding and some of the different classifications of the proposed vegetative fences on site. Anyone wants any questions?
Alan?
What kind of trees are you gonna put in for your rewilding? I mean, you got big trees you're cutting down, right?
The rewilding.
It's like a comedy show.
That's right, to do that, sorry. Rewilding is going to be a combination of things, in very general terms. It could be very passive in the sense that if nothing new happened to the golf course or parts of the golf course, eventually nature will come back in and swallow things up. That would be unreasonably long to wait. We'd like to advance the cause, so there will be certain areas where we can be passive. For example, on the southern side of the site where there isn't a lot of new construction. There'll be areas where we can wait and sort of let nature take its course. But in general, we are going to advance the cause with a number of different things. So, for example, greens and sand traps would be removed and smoothed out and disappear. And so actively, we would make those things go away, reseed those with native grasses, wildflowers, and meadows. We would envision that fairways that remain or that are not already altered would become meadow, and those edges of existing wooded areas would be enhanced by additional understory trees or edge trees, and that would be smaller scale deciduous trees, and then native evergreen and deciduous shrubs. So we would try to expand edges and make them more diverse. We would try to make the surface areas more diverse with either meadows, wildflowers, and those kinds of things, as well as non-grassy ground covers. So, for example, there would be, lower native shrubs, lower native ground covers. And again, the intent is that everything be really native-based. So, on our drawing, we have a comprehensive list of native trees and shrubs that we would intend to choose from. We've gone through to make sure that we've specified available trees and shrubs. So there would be a lot of reforestation happening in existing open spaces or spaces that result from the new construction. And those would be islands constructed of or created by nursery stock clustered trees. So the tree heights would vary. The intent is to not make it look like a commercial development. The intent is to make it look like a native forest. So varying heights, varying species, varying depths. In addition to that, because it would be frankly kind of cost prohibitive to sort of repopulate the whole site with nursery stock, and by nursery stock, I mean trees that are already large and they have balls on them, root systems on them. We would also propose to do a lot of reforestation with reforestation stock. So in an area to be seeded, that could also be planted heavily, kind of like a Johnny Appleseed approach, except with seedlings. And we could create a lot of other areas that will be forested over time. And again, they'll have, not everything will succeed, but that's okay. We don't intend for that to happen. So there's a couple of different strategies that way in terms of the new planting. But in general, the idea is that there will be very little ornamental landscape other than around some of the primary amenity buildings, restaurant, the lodge, etc. And that won't be terribly extensive, but that will be a little more civilized right in those areas, for example. Lastly, I just want to comment on the buffer zones that we have, which is sort of, thank you, Kevin, really on the northern edge and all the way around to the southeast corner. And that's the darker green. And what we're trying to do is, instead of plant a line of trees and call it an evergreen screen, we're actually trying to plant with enough depth that it is essentially a linear forest that moves along those edges, and the roads go punch through those forested areas. The parking resides in deeply forested areas. And those would be very, very intentional. So those we wouldn't be doing, seedlings. Those would be very purposeful. And again, there's always an evergreen spine to that planting, but then on either side of it, we would complement it with deciduous materials, understory materials, and edge materials. Since I mentioned edge, I do want to say that our intention is to create a lot of different edge opportunities here, because edges are where good habitat happens. And by the time we're done, we believe that we'll have much more corridor opportunities for habitat or wildlife movement, both north to south and east to west. So that's a short, unorganized story.
Pollinators, are we doing anything for those?
Oh, absolutely, they'll be in the mix totally, in terms of the shrub selection and wildflowers, absolutely. Yeah. That'll be abundant here.
Alan, anything else for the applicant? No? Ed? Ed, do you have any more questions for the applicant? All right. Can I have this, whatever this thing is called?
All right, the first person I have signed up for public comment is Mary Finneran.
Can everybody hear me? Yes. So I'm not gonna use the mic, because I don't need it. I taught for 25 years. And I'm speaking to the farthest person away. Can you hear me back there? Great, okay. I am here, I'm going to read a letter from Roger Downs, who is the Conservation Director, and he sent it to you guys today. I'm going to read you this letter so that the public is sure to hear it. Dear Chairman Hudson Cole.
Mary, excuse me, the Conservation Director of
Of what? Of the Sierra Club. I'm sorry. I know him so well that I forgot to mention the organization. So it's the Conservation Director of the Sierra Club, which you will hear in a minute. The Sierra Club Atlantic chapter has reviewed the Environmental Assessment Form, EAF, for the proposed Blackhead Mountain Lodge and appreciates the opportunity to express our concerns with this massive development project on the eastern slope of the Catskills. We are a volunteer-led environmental organization of over 43,000 members statewide, dedicated to the protecting New York's air, water, and remaining wild places. Thousands of our members frequent the Catskills for hiking, bird watching, camping, fishing, and other recreational opportunities. These kinds of outsized developments represented by the Blackhead Mountain Lodge can be a threat to the ecological fragility of the Catskills, both locally with site-specific impacts and cumulatively, as this concept could be replicated throughout other parts of the park once an initial model is established. If this project is not adequately modified through a legitimate secret process, we feel it will lessen the use and enjoyment of the Catskills for our membership and degrade the ecological quality and community character of the region itself. We can appreciate the burden of responsibility that the Carroll Town Planning Board must bear when faced with a project so large. Hulking development proposals seldom consider necessary community and environmental protections if they know there are not sufficient local resources to scrutinize their plans. The Sierra Club has challenged many colossal proposals bordering wilderness areas that have outstripped the capacities and resources of small towns like Cairo. We strongly encourage the planning board to use all the tools provided by the State Environmental Quality Review Act to help frame the most pressing issues facing the ecological and public health of the local community as you weigh the project's true economic benefits against its negative environmental impacts. While we agree there is not a complete application, it is clear the scale and scope of this type 1 action deserves a positive declaration of significance and an environmental impact statement, EIS, to go with such a designation. An EIS will provide a useful structure to evaluate the development so that against agencies, experts, and the public can help scrutinize whatever plans evolve from what appears to be an already evolving project. Dismissing the obligation to take a hard look at this project will only serve to facilitate a development with more unintended consequences that will be out of Cairo's control. It will also remove any power of the planning board to deny the project or to hold the developer accountable should unpleasant outcomes emerge after a premature neg deck. While we are accustomed to a lead agency providing information about a project on a public website or providing the public access to physical documents, the Sierra Club has been fortunate to receive information pertaining to the Blackhead Mountain Lodge redevelopment project via local members through various Freedom of Information requests of the Department of Environmental Conservation, DEC. We have reviewed a set of documents from the Blackhead Mountain Lodge's representative dated April 22nd, 2024, that appear to answer DEC and public questions and concerns, while eliciting even more questions about the revised plans. The purpose of this letter is not to provide a full analysis of the deficiencies of the revised EIF, but to suggest that the information within that form clearly conveys significant potential impacts that can only be addressed by an environmental impact statement. The planning board should issue a positive declaration of significance based upon the disturbance of 73 acres, including the removal of 11 acres of mature forest and the creation of 13 acres of impervious surfaces on terraced, highly erodible soils, adjacent to one of the most devastating erosion events in recent history, the blowout of the shingle kill during Hurricane Irene, which will require more analysis, especially with the advancement of climate change and the increasing severity of storms. 2, the potential degradation of drinking water resources from construction runoff and sewage effluent discharging into the Shingle Kill Creek, Cairo's main water source. Included in this concern is the 30,000 gallons a day of water withdrawal from the creek to serve the needs of the development. The repercussions of nearly doubling the population of the hamlet of Round Top when the Blackhead Lodge's 127 new building units and additional spa and dining facilities are at full occupancy, and the impact that will have upon community character, local traffic, emergency services, public infrastructure, safety, and solid waste issues. The impact that this mega development will have on the adjacent escarpment trail with potential visual and acoustic disturbances during years of construction and decades of operation will potentially impair the experiences of the thousands of hikers that enjoy this popular and historic recreational path and pour millions of dollars into the local tourist economy. the harm to endangered or threatened species presented by the development in the form of habitat loss, water quality degradation, noise or light pollution, migration disruption, and traffic kills. All these significant impacts require further engineering studies, seasonal field inventories, modeling, and visual renderings to help avoid or minimize negative outcomes, which is all part of the EIS process. And EIS can also facilitate a robust discussion of mitigations and enforcement standards for non-compliance if the project moves forward. Again, the planning board has the obligation to ensure that the public and environment are protected as a result of the Blackhead Mountain Lodge redevelopment project, and the only way to do that is to insist that the applicant conducts a full environmental impact statement that adheres to the tenets and processes embodied in the State Environmental Quality Review Act. Thank you for your consideration of this request. Sincerely, my hero, Roger Downs. I have one question of my own. Where is the sludge going? And what are you doing with the sludge? That's my own question. Thank you. Not to add sludge to Roger's.
Jen Schwartz.
Can I, Mike, are we allowed, since everyone's here, can I ask questions directly to them?
Did you change my name?
Can I, I'm gonna sit here so that I can. I will try. Thank you all for being here.
Can everybody hear Jen? No.
Well-
Sorry, here, I will hold this.
Oh God, this is too much multitasking for me. Maybe I'll go this way, if that's okay. Okay, is this better?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, if you don't mind, I just have, some individual questions about the plans. So I have, reviewed all of your documents and technical reports with the level of, not this latest batch, because we just got it a few days ago. So these questions might seem a little granular. I'm just gonna start with the landscaping. I'm curious, and maybe this is, a question for you, but also for the planning board. How are these landscaping designs, enforced? Is there any enforcement mechanisms to make sure if we say we're getting X, Y, and Z, and a lot of this obviously is not just a requirement of the initial, construction of it, but for many years, and for a rewilding project, decades even. What is the enforcement mechanism?
Enforcement of any aspect of the project is handled by the Code Enforcement Department within the town of Cairo, and I can attest that the people of the Code Enforcement Department are great people and do work very hard. Apologies, I misspoke. That being said, if a tree dies in 20 years, I don't know how that is handled.
No, I mean when the project is completed, because so much of this design, and it's not just about it looks nice, but so much of it, the design is actually incredibly critical to erosion control, to being able to filter water so that it's actually, so those things are not just for it looks good, and also buffering noise and light, but is it just the one code enforcement officer who checks it out, or is there a more formal process?
A lot of the developers are very conscientious of their projects. For instance, Nolan Propane put those storage tanks in a few years back.
I'm not positive, but I believe there are 4 code enforcement people for the town of Cairo.
But
But that being said, that's, beyond that, I can't provide any more specificity because
Okay.
I don't have
I
it.
was just wondering how that functions.
Well, Jen, can I say something, having had experiences with the code enforcement over 4 years on my project? I guess my question is, are they trained and do they have expertise in landscaping? I mean, my experience with them was on architecture.
Was on what?
Architecture.
Just
You know,
because
just
this-
like building code.
The landscaping here is so critical to the security of the project and stormwater management and erosion control and runoff and everything else. And obviously, you're talking about a rewilding project that you know this very well. But since I live across the street, I'll just say, you know, this idea of like, we'll be passive in some areas, and I'm a science journalist, so whenever, and I, you know, I specialize in this area, whenever I hear like, we'll just let it go back to nature and like, let it take care of itself, that's a recipe for, you know, invasives taking over and running into all sorts of issues. And so that just seems like it needs to be considered more in like it's not just about how it looks, but it's like a critical safety infrastructure element of this project.
Mr. Chairman, would you like, we didn't want to have an interaction, back and forth. Well, we would like to receive comments, but this one, I think, is an easy response that we can address if you'd like us to. So generally, planning board, when plans are provided to you for your review, it's a very detailed landscaping plan that will have the list of each of the plants in each of the locations with, the species, the height, the size, planting criteria, soil specifications. Those are gonna be reviewed by the town engineer, and this board generally signs a plan, and so we're obligated to, plant that landscaping. In some instances, there's bonds that are posted, to make sure for construction compliance. All of those help with the enforcement, mechanism, but on a project like this, I would also, as you had indicated, it's in this developer's and this plan's best interest that they want to encourage, the reforestation and the creation of this habitat. And so if plans are not successful, obviously it's in our best interest to want to create that setting. But again, there's enforcement remedies as far as these plans are signed, and again, there's bonding opportunities as well.
And maybe that can be a contingency. I want to ask about, well, first, I also want to say that I understand that forested ecosystem is different from individual trees, but especially for the purposes of these steeply sloped areas, all trees are erosion control and all trees are carbon sinks, and I don't think there should be a distinction when we're talking about how many mature trees we're taking down. So I have a question, a few questions about water. So when can we expect to see a SWIP? I mean, is that something, the Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan, is that like coming soon? Since it's such a huge, but you know, both for when the project is finished, but also for how it's gonna be managed during construction, which is something that a lot of us are really concerned about. This has been a process for a long time, and there's gonna be a lot of dredging of that land, and we've seen nothing about that yet, about how that's gonna be managed, and we're extremely concerned about the construction piece of it. These water demand estimates. So, the potable water, now we're at, you know, over 46,000 gallons per day. Now, the demand is the same as the effluent estimate, correct? So, I guess I'm a little confused about that, because it doesn't, if it's potable water, it's going through a treatment process, right? Like, it comes out from the wells, and then it's going through a treatment plant, obviously before it's going through people's taps. And, you know, typically there's some wastewater generated from that process. And obviously you're consuming a portion of that water. So I don't understand why the effluent number would be the same as the demand number, right? I have to imagine the demand of what you're pulling from our water sources would be higher. Is that correct?
We're gonna take all these comments and we're gonna respond.
Okay.
As hard as it is to not answer your comment.
Yeah, I think there needs to be, you know, and also in this latest plan, you know, it says, well, we don't need to include any sort of water demand for irrigation. I understand that the hope is that down the road, all of this landscaping will maintain itself. All of us here have properties. We know that's not entirely true, especially during drought, especially for when you're setting up all of these native habitat systems, you need to be intensive, you need to intervene. But even for the first several years of getting it all going, meadow habitat and all of that, it's gonna take a lot of water. And I think we absolutely must know what that's gonna be, because just erasing that from the numbers on the EAF, I think is negligent.
We'll look deep on that.
Yeah.
A lot of thought has gone into it, even though the numbers, it looks like it's disappeared, that's not the case. So we will answer
Right,
that for that.
but they're making their decisions, like, you know, as the lead agency, they're just looking at the numbers on the EAF and the appendices, which is the same information that I'm looking at. So you as the expert might have more, if they're looking at those numbers and they say, oh, well, it's only 46,000, that seems good, you know, they don't have the full picture of what the actual demand is. I foiled with the DEC all of the correspondence between all of you and the DEC. One of the things in the emails that I saw was an engineer at the DEC had said that the effluent discharge limits into the tributary of the Shingle-Kill are 35,000 gallons per day. I have to assume that's partially why the plans have changed. What I'm confused about is, so you're going, it's a pocket plant, right? That's like the general style of this wastewater treatment plant, and then it's gonna get pumped back up to a water body, an existing water body. And so does that ultimately though drain back out? And that's the idea of how it's gonna work?
Yes, and
Okay.
we'll elaborate on that, we'll answer that.
Okay, but okay, so that's the direction that it's going in. I'm curious with these wastewater treatment plants. Do we have, when I looked into some studies of these, I was seeing a lot of case studies for failure rates, that these pocket plants especially have pretty high failure rates. I'm just wondering how that's going to be addressed in terms of not just obviously the failure of treating the water and making it safe, but of how that's gonna get paid for to fix down the line. I would like there to be contingencies for that. Something you brought up tonight with the issue with plastic in the tanks, are there PFAS issues?
No. I'd like you to share that study.
Sure.
Our experience is quite the opposite.
Yeah, they came directly from civil engineers, so.
I'm just interested which part of the country, what processes, those kinds of specifics,
Yeah.
not just generalizations.
So, you know, something that I ran into over and over again when looking at the well testing, and this came up in an email from the DEC, when you were submitting your plans for the well testing, they had a bunch of issues with it. Among them, it's unclear why this well testing is being done in March. February, March, and April are well known. It's in the SEQRA process, but it's also, every piece of advice says do not do well testing during the months when water table is highest and evaporation rates are lowest. So I'm wondering why, despite all of that information, why the well testing is still happening now. I mean, how is the DEC gonna be able to actually evaluate that data if it's happening at the wrong time of year? So I just wonder, if maybe there's a reason why you're doing exploratory drilling this time of year, but it says directly in the email from the DEC to Natalie Quinn and to some of you, this is not how it's supposed to be done. And it's going along anyway. So I'm looking for the rationale there. I also think that these well tests need to be monitored by an independent hydrologist. Something else I saw in those emails, on February 29th, Natalie Quinn wrote to the DEC that we have instructed Titan, which is the company conducting the well testing, to ensure that drainage from well 1 testing is directed deep into the interior of the site. Though it was directed directly into the tributary that feeds the Shingle-Kill. That's the exact same test that, you know, she's referencing. And so it's a little alarming to say that, you know, they're telling the DEC that it's gonna be directed into the interior of the site and it's going right into the Shingle-Kill. We have photos of it. And so I'm, you know, not just because it's so important to get the well testing done correctly, but for safety reasons like that, it's common that an independent hydrologist, maybe from Lamont, like, could be involved in the well testing. So I just wanna, touch on one more thing, which is the traffic report. I live on Crow's Nest Road. I'm a little confused still about this traffic report. So you did these tests. We saw the script up there. And on Crow's Nest Road, I looked at the data and I looked at these like peak hours. So it was like whenever the traffic was highest. Over the course of several days on Crow's Nest Road, it was 15 trips, so round trips. On Friday, it was 5 on a Sunday. So why does the chart say 50 for Crow's Nest Road? Is that like a random extrapolation? How did you get to 50? And what was the point of doing the test if the data wasn't used? Like, why isn't that data represented?
Well, again, I understand you're looking at it.
You wanna run through all your traffic, I'll record it all and get you
I'll give you
answers.
responses.
Right, well, I thought that was the point of doing a test.
No,
If
what
you
we're
wanna-
saying is give us a list of all of your questions and we'll write them down and provide you with responses.
Okay. The weekday trips to the former Blackhead Mountain Lodge, 800, weekdays, 800 trips to the former Blackhead Mountain Lodge.
It's closed.
I mean, that is, I don't know if any of the Moslems are here, but even they would, that is an absurd number of trips up Crow's Nest Road, 800. Something also that's missing, something that made the rounds in media, and that was really, there's only gonna be a 7% increase in traffic. A lot of us said that was completely bogus. The DEC said that was inaccurate as well. But what I didn't see in the report, and it's, 100 pages, so I could have missed it, but what is the new projected increase? I didn't see that there was a correction to what that percentage increase is, just that the intersections are still like a type A, but there was no actual number that was provided, and I think that's important, because we have to correct that. And just get a more update, realistic update. I also, I was trying to look at the signage that you provided, the maps with where all the signs are and the circled areas that needed to be considered. Beyond obviously that intersection at Blackhead Mountain Road and Heart's Content. It looks like there was no circles around the intersection of Bald Hills and Crow's Nest. That's a 4-way intersection. There's stop signs in one direction right now. I can't imagine that wouldn't need to be assessed and more signage added, and that's going to change things. I also am really concerned about the curve when Crow's Nest goes up to the entrance, which will be the service entrance to the resort. The way it doesn't go straight into the driveway. You have to navigate the curve and then take a right turn into the driveway. And that road is not very wide in that tight curve, and we come down that road and there's very, very, very little traffic now. But if we're having trucks and other vehicles at all going around that curve, that is going to be a massive crash risk. Especially like for people who don't know how to navigate it. I think that absolutely needs a closer look. And I think the wideness of that road and I don't know what it's gonna need, but the fact that wasn't circled is hugely concerning from a safety perspective. Finally, I'll just say to the planning board, this public hearing process, because it hasn't followed the standards of the review law, it's increasingly confusing about where we're at in the process. So one thing I wanted to ask was, will Lamont Engineering continue to review the updated plans as they come in, or is their job done now?
No,
So Lamont Engineering is continuing to review the project through the entire process and I'll state again, the public hearing will remain open and we are doing a full review of this project. It is not something that is done at the last meeting and it's not something that's going to be completed this meeting. And so, I ask everybody for their patience to allow us to do a a complete review and to allow Lamont to have the time to do that.
Okay, just wanted to make sure they weren't, because their contract made it sound like they were reviewing what was existing. But a lot of the answers that came back were sort of like TBD. So I just wanted to make sure they were along for the whole ride. And so is the plan then, like, that this public hearing is gonna remain open until, like, before you make a vote on a secret determination? Are we gonna have it's gonna close at some point and then open again? Like, what's because it's not following the typical protocol, I can't make sense of it.
So everybody understands the public hearing law in the town of Carroll requires a public hearing to open once the planning board has deemed the application complete. There is a determination on seeker, and then you have to have a public hearing. The policy of this board has always been to afford the community a larger window to comment on a project. So we open the public hearing early so that you can be part of the project while it is being reviewed, and we leave the public hearing open until the application is fully complete, until there is a seeker determination, and thereafter the public hearing then gets closed and the board can move forward to vote on the project. Not saying that all happens in one meeting or 2 meetings, but that's a 5-second version of how it works. Yes, I recognize that the law requires us to have a month-long and one public hearing, and it to be done not now. If we were to follow the law, as you were saying, the public hearing wouldn't open for quite a while and nobody would have been able to comment as of yet. So, we're trying to work with the community and give everybody the most opportunity they have to be part of this process. So I encourage you to work with us and don't see it as us opening the public hearing as a negative thing, because we're trying to give you more of an opportunity. By opening it months earlier is really a benefit to you. Yes, it is not complete yet, but we haven't said it is complete yet. So nobody should be asking if it is, because we haven't even got there yet. I understand it's a long process, and I guess don't try to rush the board to a determination. Let us do our work.
I personally would love, no one is trying to rush the board. No one. The opposite. We are trying to be involved in a way that doesn't, where we're just getting, revisions and updates, where all of us have to be foiling for things and paying attention, because we have no idea if this is gonna be the meeting where it closes, or this is gonna be the meeting where you make a determination. I think what would be helpful going forward, the DEC has put this in emails to you. They've told the developers consultants this. There needs to be, if this is a public hearing, there needs to be communication. If there's a document update that, this is just what all these other towns do. And so I think just being able to communicate a little bit more with us so that we don't have to be along the ride. We want to give you your time to consider things and do the work. We don't want to have to be scrambling to catch up every month. So I think just a little bit more, and maybe the consultants can help out with this, whether it's putting documents on the website or when an update comes in, it can get posted so that we're not scrambling and we can just show up when we need to show up, read the new documents when it's time for us to, but it's not this protracted process where we have no idea what the process is. So those are my specific questions. Do you need me to send them in
I
writing?
was just gonna say that if you'd like to, that would be ideal. Obviously, we're recording and then we transcribe everything, but if you'd like to also submit them, that would be great.
Sure, I can do that. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Jen. Roger Down.
Do we stand up here? If you're loud enough, you can talk, otherwise I have.
All right, I'll attempt to be loud enough. I actually didn't intend to speak. I
sort of thought the letter spoke for itself, but just observing this, I mean, I've been through 100 seeker proceedings and you know, worked many situations like this. I've never quite seen it like this, and I want to at least reiterate my sincerity in the letter. Like, I have complete respect for planning boards. You guys do, you know, really thankless work, and it's such an important public service to balance, you know, development and the economics of one's town. I find this process really confusing. This does not follow the kinds of processes that either, you know, other communities in Greene County do. I'm from Coxsackie. I happen to work for a national organization that, you know, is very concerned about mega developments like this. But, you know, I appreciate that you want to have as much, you know, public input as possible, but I totally get the frustration here. You know, we have a developer here who has sort of put up a very blurry screen, says this is your opportunity to access information. We have this study, and we have this study, and we have this study, and it feels like they're throwing it into a black hole because we don't have access to those studies. And I understand that if one wants to read them, they either have to go during working hours to the town hall and maybe they can glean them, or if they have to do a freedom of information request. I think fundamentally the misunderstanding here is that the environmental assessment form is not meant to tease out every environmental problem and try to solve it. And clearly seeing the alterations from the first EAF to the second one demonstrates an applicant who's making a lot of changes and doesn't quite have a handle on a project that is incredibly vast on an environmentally challenging site. They don't have their stuff together. And it definitely demonstrates that. The point of an EAF, the point of this document, is for a planning board to say, will there be significant environmental impact that needs to be studied and discussed, or will there not? And I think in that sense, you have all the information you need. There will be a significant impact, pause it, and then there will be a full environmental impact. What I see, at least from maybe half the documents I've been able to see based on citizens foiling the DEC, not the planning board, is this notion that, you know, you're almost holding a de facto environmental review where you are sort of going through the process, you are taking public comment and writing it down, but nobody here gets to see it, nobody gets to interact with the documents. I say end this charade, pause this, start the review. And for one thing, I think Jen is absolutely right. I think you can require the applicant create a public website. Every document they share with you, mandate that they put it on the public website so that we have access as well, so that we can see that. I think that would be essential. And I understand you don't have the resources to do this. But if the planning board doesn't have the resources to provide the public with the basic information, how do you have the resources to do the analysis as to whether a project that's gonna double the population of Round Top into this town's drinking water source? Like, if you don't have the resources to do that, how do we know that this is gonna be protected? So again, I totally appreciate this David and Goliath scenario, but sometimes for that story to work out, David needs to pick up the sling. Please use all the tools you have before you. Let us help you. If you open up an environmental review, then resources from the state, from the public, all of us can participate in these documents, and we can make a better project, or we can help you deny it. Thank you.
Janine Morick.
I have one question I'd like to start with. You talk about this revegetation and adding all this beautiful landscaping, but has anybody considered the deer? The deer? The deer eating everything. I mean, I'm just saying, I've lived here for 33 years. If I plant anything on my property that doesn't have screening around it, fences around it, it gets devoured. It's like they know, they instinctively know, and they find it and they eat it. Trees, I mean, I go to the nursery and I'm begging them to sell me something that the deer won't devour. And if you're gonna have these open, beautiful fields or try to reforest young trees, and I mean, they're gonna come out of the woodwork and they're gonna devour everything you plant. So that's what I want to start with.
Daffodils.
Oh, they like, yeah, they don't like daffodils. I'm a layman, but I'm trying to put together some things that I'm very concerned about here. I've spent the last 3 days reading over the extensive updated data for the application for this project. I am certainly not an expert in any of the fields for consequential impacts being reported, but my takeaway is that there are still a lot of hypothetical situations being explored and justified, and I'm deeply concerned. As a resident of Round Top, I am especially afraid of the hypothetical numbers of usage of water. The fact remains that there is still no accurate representation of the residents that depend on wells for their water in the 2-mile radius of the Blackhead Mountain Lodge. The Crawford report includes the New York State DEC locator map, but there are no wells reported west of Route 31. How can that be? On Blackhead Mountain Road alone, we have 19 residences that depend on well water, yet none of those wells are mapped or accounted for. No one has taken the time to update and account for the water usage needs of the current residents on Blackhead Mountain Road, Bald Hills Road, or Crow's Nest Road. The Crawford report also states the existing Blackhead Mountain Lodge has 1 on-site well, 2 on-site ponds, and an existing permit to withdraw up to 210,000 gallons per day from the Shinglekill Creek for irrigation. Their withdrawal for irrigation reported for June-July 2022 shows 65,000 to 140,000 gallons per day. The existing Blackhead Mountain Lodge daily flow of public water system usage from 2023 shows 14,310 gallons per day for 22 motel units, main office apartment, fitness center, golf course patrons, clubhouse bar, conference room, 8 employees, and the dining room lodge, all with 1 on-site well, and these are seasonal numbers. The development's estimate for public water system usage for 127 keyed units, a multi-use barn, restaurants, laundry, spa, 200 employees, staff housing, and the 66,000 square foot lodge has been updated to 46,192 gallons per day. That is only 3 times what the usage needs are for the existing Blackhead Mountain Lodge. I find this number hard to comprehend or believe, and this is usage that's year-round. In fact, the proposed development has recently done testing for 5 wells on site. They have stated that they will only use impounded water on site for irrigation. Why then are they testing for so many wells? Unfortunately, these numbers are hypothetical, and there will never be assurances that the underground water supply won't be negatively impacted for the local residents of Round Top. And I don't personally know anyone who was asked to test their well. Sorry. No. The ultimate fact is no contingency plan or any amount of money can produce water if there's a shortage or a drought. After reading through this application, I see a lot of data and expert opinions that the developers gathered to justify their existing plans. Unfortunately, I don't see any effort to work towards finding a balance or harmony with the least negative impacts for the future. The unknowns are endless. If they considered reducing the overall size of their proposal, it could be a great asset with less stress on the environment, wildlife, natural resources, infrastructure, noise and light pollution, and general quality of life, and still bring substantial bounty to the town of Caro. The overall benefits could outweigh the negatives and bring everyone together in support of the outcome. Thank you.
Stephen Petronio?
Hey, I just want to say, I appreciate your questions, so thank you. I just want to say this very simply. You guys have heard from me many times. The Blackhead Mountain development proposal is outlandishly large, complex, and has the potential for enormous impact on our community. It must undergo careful and methodical scrutiny. We all want Round Top to develop in the most conscious and positive way. I implore the planning board to require the Blackhead project to have an environmental impact statement and go through full scoping process. I call for this public hearing to be kept open. I call for a positive declaration. We all want the same thing. I just also feel that the way that our meetings are stumbling through, and thank you, Roger, by the way, I feel like finally there's some sanity in the room, because it's not in my head. But I just feel like this project is so complex. And my question, and there's experts out there, and Jen, I'm talking to Jen, and all of my neighbors who are really struggling to help this process become more realistic. It does need a really comprehensive overview. I don't think we're prepared we don't have the resources to look at this, a project of this scope. And it's not about blaming this board. I know you're doing your best. This is a gigantic project. You haven't seen a project like this. And when something of this nature gets approved, what about the other ones that come up? And when do you decide that's enough? So why does the Blackhead Mountain project get to go forward at such a crazy level, and then the next one, how do you judge the next one? So I just think it's important to put that in perspective. That's a lot of millions of dollars that were talked about. Once the resources are gone from Blackhead, you can't replace, that money doesn't mean anything really. And it'll get spent faster than you can imagine. The helipad was not a concession, it was, we all know that. But, so let's not call it a concession. Thank God it's not gonna be there. My well was not tested. I live a quarter of a mile up the road on Crow's Nest Road. I'm above right above the project, so my wells are gonna be impacted and no one's come knocking on my door. Okay, that's it, thanks. Thank you.
Dwight?
First of all, I have to agree with the DEC permit for Mossman. That was issued a long time ago when the water levels were a lot higher. Now, if I were a developer, I would present a Disneyland and Magic Kingdom to the town. We're doing this, it's gonna benefit you, it's gonna be great, here are our projections. Fine, we've gotten all that. What don't we know? That's really important. I've done research. I can't find that this group has had any prior experience with a project of this scope. I don't see it. And yet they're going into a massive project here. As Jen said, some of the numbers are bogus. Okay, the traffic increasing 7%. Come on, you got 100 cars a day, 7% is 107. I wasn't good at algebra, but I can do my basic math, okay? Now, the traffic is one thing. How about all the heavy construction? All the traffic, what's that gonna do to our roads? Now, you can give us all the projections you want, all the statistics. How many people here have started a project projecting? I'm trying to build a barn. I want to build a garage. Gee, Here it is on paper, oh, this is great, it's gonna work. How many times have you had to make changes while you were building it? Oh, we didn't take this in consideration. We didn't account for that. Oh, but I thought, well, this is gonna happen. And this Johnny Appleseed reforestation, I'm not gonna see it in my lifetime. You're gonna plant little seedlings. I planted a blue spruce 32 years ago. It was as tall as I am. Now it's 30 feet high. Okay? I'm never gonna see it. You're gonna plant seedlings? Are you kidding me? That's not gonna work. Now, what happens to our property values? The attraction of Round Top is that we're next to the Catskill Park. We have a lot of wildlife. We have a lot of forests. We have what's called quiet enjoyment of our property. That's what attracts people to Round Top. When they see a mega resort, are you kidding me? You really think they're gonna come here for that? Round Top has a reputation for wilderness, for hiking, for fishing, for hunting, and our forests. And once a massive resort comes in like this, what's this gonna do to the town of Round Top? And, great, I understand, this is a financial decision for the developers. They're taking a risk, okay? They're telling us, this is gonna be great, it's gonna happen. Well, anybody here Friar Tuck? Now, the other thing, the effluent. If it's so good, why aren't you using it? Okay? Here's effluent, potable water from a licensed water treatment plant. Would anybody like to take a sip?
It's Caro water.
Would anybody like to take a sip? You wanna drink it?
I've been in the Army 29 years, you're not gonna kill me.
This is going into the shingle kill, right? Who'd like to drink this? It's potable, right? Come on, somebody. It's potable water. If it's that good.
He said he drank it.
He said he drank it.
Okay. Is there a doctor in the house?
There's paper cups in the bag.
Let me ask you a question.
Paper cup? Well, no one else is gonna drink it now. Mike. You didn't mention that the traffic report was done in the winter.
Yeah, also,
That's actually better than Carol's water.
the traffic report,
It's from a faucet in our office, Caro.
yeah, and a lot of people in Carroll will not drink the town water. Now, also, the traffic report was done in the off-season, April through June. What's gonna happen in the summer? You know, thank you for making a statement about the water, but why aren't you reusing it? Why aren't you recycling it back?
Yeah, why do we have to get it?
Why is it going into the shingle kill? I rest my case. Very dramatic, gentlemen, thank you. Anybody else?
Brenda?
We have a hell of a planning board, they're brave guys. I wish you hadn't said it.
So more than any kind of statement is, people have made the statement that I was gonna make, they've made it already, they've made all these points. But I have a few granular things that I wonder if you get questions on, because I'm unsure by looking at the maps. And a few comments, again, on the traffic, and one thing I think I'll start with. I think I will start with this issue about traffic myself. I am aware, after 15 years, I cannot think of a single time I've seen a tractor trailer with 4 or 5 axles on Crow's Nest Road. Not once. I've asked all of my neighbors, I've asked Anthony who's here way longer than that, I've asked Mace who's there way longer than that. No one has seen a tractor trailer deliver anything. The beer trucks are not tractor trailers that move construction equipment. I want to know, how is that supposed to get to the top of Blackhead and Crow's Nest without collapsing the road onto Mace's property. Because last week I took photographs showing where whatever, you know, on the silver railing, it's literally, it's not even hanging onto anything. A part of it's not even in the road anymore. That, obviously, I would like to know, how are you going to navigate all these heavy, and now I'm driving around and I'm looking and saying, oh, I'm looking at this kind of tractor trailer, and that kind of tractor trailer, this kind of excavation equipment. Really? On that little road? You're going to collapse it onto Mace's property. One more time, I have that photograph. I also took a photograph of a hole larger than my foot that was put in on the 24th at the intersection of Crow's Nest already, and that was from this Titan well drilling, yellow piece of massive equipment. I wasn't there. I left in the morning, went down that road, and I just, you know, I look around. That's what I'm in the business of doing in that neighborhood now. And that hole and that crap that I photographs of were not there in the morning. I find out there's all this drilling going on. I come home and I'm like, what is that? And I just stop my car in the middle of the road to take photographs. So I'm curious, how much is each hole cost to fix? And I'm very concerned that you've mentioned that you didn't have discussions with the police department or the fire department, and I did, in the little bit I was able to cover of this material, these 12 files, that Round Top is going to be the fire department du jour to handle what goes on this property. What is that costing? I see no discussion on that. Who pays for that? I don't even know who pays for the volunteer fire department when they make a trip, because I've never seen their truck come up my road in 15 years. I've never seen that truck even come out except for a parade. So now it's going to be coming up. Are those figured into this traffic report? Because my understanding is it's 2 trips a week at the new Wyndham, the new Wyndham or Weldon, whatever they're calling up there in Wyndham. And our town supervisor called to check with the fire department up there because I gave him some flaky number that is incorrect. And the truth is, it's 2 trips a week with all these smoke alarms and different stuff. So those are gonna come up our road now twice a week. We're gonna hear fire alarms for no reason, but they have to come. And so who's paying for that? I still wanna know this traffic, what's happening? What kind of money is going to escrow for the roads that are gonna be so destroyed with construction equipment? The traffic numbers for when this place is operational someday, that's one problem. That's another issue. I couldn't even drill down in all the numbers because I didn't have enough time. 36 hours was not enough time for me. But this construction equipment, what kind of money? When I called up the Greene County Highway Department and I asked them how far $25,000 would go in road repair, he laughed at me. I said I wouldn't mention his name. He laughed at me. So we're talking some big money. Where's the discussion with the highway department? I want to know. The roads are my pet peeve. Now I'm going to back this up to what are these kinds of mats, traffic mats, honeycomb mats? What is this? Where are they going? Are they going on the roads? Or are they just going on the property for not ruining the property? Because I'm curious, Joe, why you mentioned it to the town board on the 21st. Because who cares what they're going to do to the roads there? That's these people's problem. Your concern is our roads, the roads I have to drive. So it seems from your comments on the 21st that it sounds like they're going to be putting these road maps down everywhere, and oh, there's tractor trailers, and there'll be tractor trailers like there's always been tractor trails, which there have not always been tractor trails, at least not for 15 years. So I'm very concerned that, you know, they're trying to kind of really skirt this road issue. Onto a somewhat nicer point though. I was trying to figure out this, I read something in these consultants' responses, the 39-page document, about fencing, perimeter fencing. What kind of perimeter fencing is that? Is that 6-foot fencing, 4-foot fencing, 20-foot fencing? Is it going to be everywhere? Is it going to disturb the trees along the tree line on Crow's Nest Road, where yesterday I counted questionable between 45 and 50 trees of different maturity. And they are basically what abuts the ditch, so that road just doesn't wash away down the cliff, you know, wash my house right away. So I'm curious, I still couldn't tell from the those boards, they told me a lot, but I'm unsure. Are those trees being touched? Are they being taken down? Those are some old trees. Birds live in those trees. They're also the only natural barrier between my property and the project. So that I really want a serious answer for. Are those 45 trees being taken down, or are they staying? And if so, if they're staying, where's this fence going? How far back off the road? I'm literally 30 feet from there. I'm literally the closest. Next to Peter Mosna, I'm the closest. I'm closer than Anthony. Anthony's residence isn't that close. He's set quite a few yards away from the property. I'm literally 30 feet. So I'd like to know what's happening with that, because those birds are my friends. I feed them, and they come back year after year, the same cardinal pair and their offspring. This is a big concern. Do you know? Do you happen to know, or should I write this down to get an answer? Thank you. Okay, no, I really meant, maybe you knew, because this is a real concern for me. The roads again. Nobody keeps mentioning these rock walls, and they're talking about they're gonna have flaggers to bring these construction vehicles and these, quote, tractor trailers that we never have, up that road. How are we gonna know when we can get down that road? Will they be just closing off the road, so I have to figure an extra 10 minutes? Is the schedule gonna come around? Do we have to operate our lives around when we can get down Blackhead Mountain Road? How will we know? There's only 2 ways on it. Well, there's 3 ways, you know, but they're a good distance apart, and they're even curvier. And the one thing that all the residents know, and I think this was mentioned, the only way to navigate those roads, you've got to know those roads. And by the way, in this report, they also said they'll need flaggers because the trucks will be going over the center lines, going up and down. That's not accounting for the, I don't know, 130 some odd workmen a day who don't know the roads. They'll just be going up and down. So these are really small, this is a really small road. I'm not even talking Crow's Nest, just to get to Crow's Nest. It's dangerous, and I think they're really minimizing the impact on that road in their report. So I'm not happy with that. Let's see, that takes care of fencing question, tree lines, fire department, the roads. Animal corridors? What, please, pray tell, are animal corridors? They sound groovy, I'm all for them. What are they for the bears to go through the property? Or the deer to go through the property? The squirrels won't need corridors. So I'm a little confused, at least for the migratory birds, because I do keep geese counts and I report to Audubon and Merlin every year. It's what I do, I'm a birder. So what are these animal corridors? It could be in the reports, but those 12 files, no, I need more than 36 hours to read through 12 files of almost 1,000 pages. Okay, and the cost to fix those roads, because it started already, just like damage to the DuVernay's mailbox started already, the road damage started already just from one well-drawn truck. Okay, let's see, what else? Offers, delivery, I think, well, folks, that's it. You got me, I'm done. These are my questions, these are my comments, and these are my issues that I really need answered out. And one more thing, this, because of all these really wonderful points we've all raised, and we've raised them repeatedly, but one thing is absolutely true, this new batch of documents, this new submission, has literally led to more questions. So we need time. And the public really needs easier access. It can't just be, you know, who knows Jen, so we got the documents, or who knows this one, so we got the documents. There's other people that would be interested if it was easy for them, and they didn't have to make an extra email to somebody, a third person. So that transparency, there's no reason not to do it. I understand we have a small staff, an underpaid staff doing this work. I don't know, you guys have to figure it out, ask for help. That's what I'm gonna say to the government part of their problem. And we really need a full, what is it, environmental assessment? This has to go for full scoping. It's too big, and it will destroy a very little town by throwing a town in our little hamlet, or throwing a hamlet in our hamlet. So if 12 families living closest to this project, if their life and lifestyle and their property's values over the next 5 years have to be compromised, this really has to be done slowly, fully scoped, and let everybody decide if selling an extra piece of pizza to workmen is worth 12 families and their residences. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Michael?
Oh, this is the hole. This is the hole by the well drilling truck. Just by making a turn. I have the street marks from the truck on video. I couldn't print the video.
My name is Michael Pepe. My wife and I bought a house on Bald Hills Road North 5 or 6 years ago. We lived in Queens for 60+ years, but have always loved the Hudson Valley region, often vacationing in and around Greene County. We even tried to relocate here at one point when we were much younger, but could not find work. A few years ago, we were fortunate to retire, sell our house in Queens, and become permanent residents of Round Top in July 2022. Having lived in the city my entire life, there are many things I'm trying to adjust to about living in a rural community. While there are some things I still miss about city life, I don't think you'll ever hear me or any newcomer say something like, gee, I really miss the Belt Parkway and all that city traffic. Whenever friends and family ask me about how I'm adjusting to my new life, one of the first things I'm apt to say is that there are times when I can sit on my front porch for an hour without a single car passing by. The distress and suspicion many of us residents, both old-timers and newcomers, are experiencing over the Blackhead project have much to do with vantage point. Depending on where your home is located and what your particular interest or concern might be, you may be worried about a proposed overly lit parking lot or deforestation of the site or the intrusion of noise. I've had from helicopters, but we don't have to worry about that anymore. Some of us fear the project's effects on wildlife, our water supply, or other environmental issues. Some fear declining property values, tax issues, and the strain of community support and services. I very selfishly focus on traffic patterns and how many cars are gonna go past my porch at any given hour on certain times of the week. All those concerns, though, are really only one giant concern about how the current immense size of the proposed project will impact the quality of life in Round Top and Carroll. The Carroll Planning Board can help alleviate much of the lack of trust that has surrounded around this whole enterprise. And I know I'm a newcomer. I didn't realize what was going on. And actually, I have to say, my wife and I spent a lot of time looking for a place for us to retire to, and we picked this place. And I actually don't know if we would have picked this place if there was a big resort down the block. We have avoided places like that before, and I know this gentleman earlier said that part of the attraction of the place is that it is a beautiful place, and we're surrounded by nature, and I can attest to that. That's why we came here. So the Carroll Planning Board can help alleviate much of this lack of trust surrounding the development by guaranteeing that the proposed Blackhead project will be subjected to a thorough environmental impact statement, and that the board commits to keeping the public hearings open until the application is finalized. Thank you.
Thank you.
CJ, I don't know, Matthews or Mathern?
Mathern. Hi. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
I live across the street on 136 Crow's Nest Road with Jen. I'm Jen's husband. I'm really just going to echo some things that were said tonight. One being that I foiled for this information on Monday morning, and I did get a receipt that you got my foil, but I shouldn't have to foil for this information, actually. It needs to be made more available, and I think what Roger was saying, he said a lot of good things. Something that really sticks in my head is the blurry screen. I do think we've all been faced with a giant blurry screen. You've mentioned that this was a Sixth Senses, Joe? Unofficial, yeah, in an unofficial public hearing, but I had it recorded. And I understand that.
I said, to my understanding, it could potentially be, I did not say it was.
Right, but what I'm saying, it seems like there's a lot of information being put out there and really confusing and sending everyone in a tailspin. We don't actually have accurate information, and you're not giving it to us. Now, what I'm seeing is, I see a subdivision. What you're building is a subdivision.
Right. Yes, yes.
I grew up in the land of inappropriate development. I grew up in Miami. Okay, I've seen people do things that were not appropriate to the environment. And if you go down to where I'm from now, it's sprawl. So I don't trust you. It's really hard to trust this because there's so little information. So therefore, we all need a much more robust environmental impact statement. There needs to be way more work done on this. We're all exhausted. We have full-time jobs. I know you only get $85 a month, but seriously, or whatever it is.
I'm only getting 70.
Joe gets 85.
I'm just saying, I know that we've left these meetings and we've all said we're exhausted. I was in public school and I do not miss cafeteria seating. We're exhausted. Obviously, we definitely need to keep this open. There needs to be a positive seeker declared. That it's just obvious. Again, I'm just really concerned on the lack of clarity of this, and it's insulting. You're treating our town like suckers, and it's insulting. And I want to be a little emotive. I'm just emoting a little because I think we all feel that, and it's really easy to want to get up here and rant and be angry because it is a David and Goliath situation. And I think that we all really need to keep supporting one another. And I know there's a lot of stuff being said on Facebook. I hate going on Facebook. But I dip into it, me and Jen look at it, people say hateful things. But really we all just need to talk to one another. We need to communicate a lot, and it all can't be on Jen. She's good at it, trust me. She's incredibly talented. And I'm very proud of her. And I'm very proud of Mace. I'm very, very proud of Brenda. I'm proud of all of you, Tim. You guys are all, and I do respect the work you guys are doing. I know this is really hard, and I just want to say, we can't get tired yet, because we really do have a long fight ahead of us, and I just want to get up here and declare, and just, put that out there. Also, we were never approached about testing our well, so I do think there's a little bit of fibbing going on. We live directly across the street. We're going to be directly affected. Okay, the developers never contacted us, ever.
No.
So,
I've made it pretty clear how to reach me.
yeah, look, I know we're all tired, so I'm just going to so thank you.
Frank Algazine?
See how I can do. It's really late, I'm gonna try and be quick. Off the subject a little bit. I have 25 deer at a time in my yard. I suggest boxwoods, they don't eat it. And barberry was illegal in New York State, but they just came up with a neutered barberry, they don't touch it. It's gorgeous stuff. Don't use deer and rabbit guard because it attracts fishers, coyotes, and bears. Now, I spoke to some town of Greenville folks this past week, and in fairness to the current owners of the former Pine Springs Resort, the town of Greenville assessor, and some other people, I want to back up for just a moment and correct something that was stated at the last public hearing. It was stated that the former Pine Springs Resort was tax exempt and used the resort as an example of all that is wrong with what I assume this individual's beliefs that religious and cultural organizations owning properties and getting lawful, constitutionally protected exempt status was taking a lot of assessment off the roll, and that's why our taxes are too high. There's so much more that I could add to this discussion, but let me just provide one proof in fact. The former Pine Springs Resort is currently fully taxable on the 2024 Town of Greenville tax roll. I contacted the Town of Greenville tax collector yesterday, and she informed me that she in fact had a bill for the former Pine Springs Resort payable in the amount of $58,900. According to the Greene County SDG ImageMate Online, a tax was levied last year in the amount of $54,264. I checked the 2024 tentative Town of Greenville assessment roll filed yesterday, and I find that the former Pine Springs Resort is fully taxable in Roll Section 1 in the name of Miracle Resort LLC, classified religious. That being the case, they will be receiving tax bills going forward as well. This is all part of why I am here. This is the last place I want to be. Last time I was here, I wanted this to be a one in and then out and not come back. But last month, I raised the issue and simply asked what the market value of this project would be. I was supervising a roof project. I got an email from Jen. She sent me a copy of that fiscal impact analysis that was sent here within the past couple of weeks. I opened it up on my phone in a PDF. I looked at it, and if the roof was higher and I could have killed myself, I think I would have jumped off. Seriously, this is garbage. It was done by a firm in Chicago. I don't mean to be critical. I'm sorry, I apologize. I was on the very first Town of Cairo Planning Board. I was there because I was licensed land surveyor. I formulated their first common sense subdivision regulations. I've also have sat where you people sat, projects, and I just know how tough it is for them. I was gonna tear this up, you can have it, don't read it, it's really worthless. Okay. At last month's meeting, I asked the developers here if they would provide us with an estimate of what the market value of this project would be. Before I go any further, I've asked this question over and over again. What are these units? I'm aware, I know what townhouses are, I know what condominiums are, I know what an LLC is, where people buy into a portion of a large development and they get rights to a specific unit. What are they? Can you tell me what they are? If you can't tell me that right here and now, please, what are they?
We're gonna take all of your comments and.
You gotta be kidding me.
You can't
don't
tell
know
us what
whether
the
these
buildings
How
are?
could you possibly, I'm sorry, I'm really frustrated. I've been involved in real property tax administration for 40 years. How could you possibly do a financial analysis and not be able to tell me what the heck you're building? There is a tremendous difference. How could your guy come up with $330 million of value when in fact there are laws that in New York State that highly restrict the amount that you can assess condominiums for? Check it out. Have your guy look at section 339Y of the real property law. You cannot assess these things for, even if you sell them for $2 million a piece. At last month's meeting, I asked the developers here if they would provide us with an estimate of what the market value of this project would be. They have completed one, and I have received a copy of it a couple of days ago. I have to admit, I've never seen anything remotely close to the size of any single project. If you remember from last month, I used Catskill Commons as an example of what extent of improvements to real property would have to be made to add up to $52 million. It included Walmart, Lowe's, the Mini Mall, Bank of Greene County, Mavis Discount Tire, Burger King. Let me read verbatim the exact words from page 8 of the report. Based upon our experience with luxury hospitality developments throughout the United States, and upon our specific review of similar hospitality operations with which we are familiar, we estimate that the development's market value would be approximately $330 million. That is 6.35 times my Catskill Commons example of $52 million. So let me adjust my example of Catskill Commons. It would take the combined market values of 6 Walmarts, 6 Lowe's, 6 Mini Malls, 6 Banks of Greene County, 6 Mavis Discount Tires, 6 Burger Kings, and I would still come up $18,200,000 short. It's tough not to be angry. Let's look at a couple other comparisons. The total taxable full value of the town of Holcott, located in the southwestern corner of Greene County, is $103,500,000. The report is saying that this project will have a taxable market value of more than 3 times the entire town of Holcott. The total taxable full value of the town of Ashland, located adjacent to the ski resort town of Wyndham, Greene County, is $256 million. The report is saying that this project will have a taxable market value $74 million higher than the entire town of Ashland. The total taxable full value of Prattsville, located in the northwest corner of Greene County, is $126,200,000. The report is saying this project will have a taxable market value $204 million higher than the entire town of Prattsville. Looking back at these 3 town examples, the report is saying that the value of this project will have taxable market value that is $100,000 than the towns of Holcott and Prattsville combined. It's mind-boggling. Here are a couple more quick Greene County comparisons. The estimated market value of this project, according to the report, is $33 million higher than the entire village of Hunter, located at the base of Hunter Mountain Ski Area, $103 million higher than the village of Tannersville, $80 million higher than the village of Coxsackie, $71 million higher than the village of Athens. Again, at this point, I have to ask, what are you building that has a taxable market value that exceeds the value of 3 entire Greene County towns and 4 out of 5 villages? The gent who did this report, he talked to all of the wrong people. Seriously, except for maybe the county officials in the budget office. I don't want to criticize Sue Hilgendorf. She's a tax collector. I wish our local assessor had more to say about this. I was former director of real property tax services. I talked to the current director of real property tax services. You reached out to his office and talked to basically clerks and staff people. You owe him the decency. If you are going to reach out to a county agency, you need to talk to the director. and that is my suggestion. The two people that could have helped you the most in doing this study is me and the current Director of Real Property Tax Services. This report also includes an estimate of, and I quote, future uninflated annual tax revenue at full occupancy. That, to me, sounds like you're putting some words in there that if you don't have all of the units filled or sold or whatever you're gonna do with them, that's gonna be a grounds to throw out your $330 million estimate, because an admission that you might be paying like $5 or $6 million in taxes annually here, I'm shocked that you're back. I seriously am. Unless that's gonna be spread out somehow in whatever kind of units that you're selling. So I don't understand why this gent put in here at full occupancy. Primary example is, if there's a house and there's nobody living in it, and there's nobody occupying it, it still has value, and just because nobody's there, it doesn't affect the market value. I have a basic knowledge of vacancy rates as they apply to the determination of the value in appraisals. But my concern is that this might be included as an aspect of evidence in future assessment grievances. Secondly, the annual tax revenue estimate has a fundamental error that is the result of a lack of understanding of New York State real property tax laws and tax rate calculations. I went through your numbers and I tried, and I put proper tax apportionment science into it, not taking into consideration, I don't understand the 300, I found a $925,000 error, overinflated. This report also states that it will pay $173,365 annually to the Round Top Fire District. Once again, lack of understanding plays into this significantly inflated estimate. The Round Top Fire District adopts a budget, and that budget stipulates a total tax levy which is subject to a 2% tax cap. This year's tax levy was approximately $108,000. All property owners within the district pay this tax, and even if this resort is completed and assessed for $330,200,000, it's a big number, it will not pay the entire levy. So at this point, I would ask the developers, how could you estimate paying $173,000 in fire district taxes when you'll only be charged a portion of 108? I want to skip through some of this. Okay, the report says that it's based upon the construction of 127 units using a per unit value after attributing a hypothetical portion of the 330 million to non-unit structures. The units would have to be valued at $2 million each. What sells in the town of Cairo for $200 million each? We have some gorgeous houses on a lake up towards East Durham. I can't imagine what you're building is much better than that. And I think they sold for $1 million. I don't understand that at all. Okay. What am I doing for that? You said that somebody is gonna sit down with some Carotown officials to go over your financial See, you did say that, correct? Because you said it was tentative and that you were going to be, going over it. I think you said with the town supervisor, maybe the police chief, and somebody else. Can I, what's that? And the fire chief. Can I sit in on that meeting? I realize you can't answer it now. Let me know, I'd love to be there. I wanna help. These people are my neighbors and friends, that's why I'm here. Anyway, I'm done.
Connie?
Okay, I don't need a microphone or anything, but I'm over here. I just got a couple little things to say. I just want to make a little correction about something that was said at the first meeting, how locals didn't support Blackhead. My family, my friends have been there for dinners, lodging, golfing, parties. We loved the family. The place was fantastic. It was a quaint, cute German place, which will be dearly missed from the bottom of my heart.
Yes.
But on April 15th, when my well water was brown, I work 9 to 5. I did a little bit of stuff in the morning before I left for work. Nothing out of the unusual. When my water was brown for 2 days, I thought, I let it go. But I'm at the meeting and I want people to know that happened to me. So I don't think we need all those buildings up there. I'm okay for what they're going to try to do, but we don't need this big conglomerate going. I'm not gonna worry about my well. If something happened to it, they'd be the first ones I go after. So I'm hoping there will be a happy something going on here, that everybody will be happy with what will be going on. And that's all I have to say. Just April 15th, my water was brown for 2 days. Nobody called you? Yeah, nobody called me. I don't know. I don't know if anybody was doing anything then. I don't know, but it's just what happened. So I just want that noted.
Hey Connie, what's your, street number?
553 Bald Hill Road North.
Thanks.
Is Art still here?
No, it was just.
Can I get a motion to end the meeting?
Can I mention one thing, Joe? Can I just mention one thing about the roads? I don't allow any tractor trailers to come up my road. I'm on a similar road, Stork's Nest, which is parallel to Crow's Nest.
Just briefly, your name and where you.
I'm sorry, I'm Bebe Renier Tobin from Round Top. And if I have a delivery of anything like a large piece of furniture, I pay extra to have it put on a smaller truck, because the one time I had a tractor trailer come up the road, it pulled out all the wires which hang low, and it disconnected and broke the wires to the phone and the electric to 3 houses. If you guys want to build on Crow's Nest, you're gonna have Verizon, who owns the poles, move all the wires higher along with the cable and everything else that goes on those poles, because there's no way you're gonna get a tractor trailer up there. That's all I want to say.
Can I address that?
Huh?
We've had tractor trailers come up Black and Mountain Road constantly.
Constantly.
They come up all the time for my deliveries. We get big gravel trucks. I have equipment delivered. It's constant, so, yes. Okay, how do you,
Joe, can I just say one? Pine Springs is the example I gave, was originally off the tax rolls. Could be back on now, that's great. Acre Manor, is that on the tax roll now? Caravelle Resort, is that on the tax roll? And the other buyers that wanted to buy Blackhead Mountain, we're gonna keep them off the tax roll. And Bavarian Manor is having the same problem. So just stop with the BS on that. I'm giving an example of properties and potential buyers. And there are buyers out there that'll buy every resort if you want to let them.
I'd like to ask a question. Would you raise your hand if your wells were tested? Anybody in that neighborhood?
I have the emails from the DEC. I can send you.
They didn't come to my house, and I'm adjacent.
I'm a mile away, and none of you came to our house.
Brenda,
No one came to my
your
house.
owners refused to have their well tested, okay, just so you know.
There were four, according to the emails between the DEC and the consultants, there were 4 people whose houses were tested. Eddie's house, Peter's house, and 2 others. So it was 4 houses total.
Can I ask one question?
Thank you.
Can I?
Frank?
Yes.
I can try to help.
Ray, you're a real estate appraiser. You just criticized me.
I just
What do you-
corrected,
Correct, not- I'm not gonna get into
what
that
you just
discussion with
said,
you.
That Pine Springs was off the tax roll, you're telling people it's not. Acre Manor's off the tax roll, Carabel Resort's off the tax roll. They had buyers that wanted a tax roll, and there's many other buyers out there. Now they have a viable buyer, you've all brought up 3 points. I'm not saying you're not bringing up 3 points. I'm saying, let's give this project that's gonna be on the tax roll, whether it's 52 million, 100 million, or 10 million, it'll be on the tax roll.
I'm not going.
That's all I'm saying.
address that. But you are a real estate appraiser professional. Why don't you really help out these folks? And give us, what do I want? Give your opinion of how, listen to me, just stop a minute. Give these people your opinion of what the market value of this thing is gonna be when it's done, when they figure out what they're building. Now, that'll be helpful.
Frank, a project like this will require a regional appraiser, not me.